The spring festival brought a vibrant energy to the small town, filling the streets with laughter and the aroma of kettle corn. I wandered through the bustling square, where colorful stalls showcased handmade crafts and local delicacies. Children darted past, their faces painted like butterflies, while couples strolled hand in hand, their joy evident in every shared glance. I watched them, feeling a familiar pang of longing twist in my stomach. My own marriage had settled into a monotonous routine, each day blending into the next like watercolors on a faded canvas. My husband and I moved through our lives like two ships passing in the night, polite nods exchanged over breakfast and distant conversations that rarely ventured beyond the mundane. Loneliness wrapped around me like a heavy shawl, suffocating yet oddly comforting in its familiarity. As I passed a booth selling handmade jewelry, my fingers brushed against cool metal trinkets. A woman behind the counter smiled warmly, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm as she explained the significance of each piece. I nodded politely but felt detached from her excitement. My heart wasn't in it, it hadn't been for years. Then I spotted him, a neighbor from down the street who had recently moved in. He stood near a food stall, laughing with some friends while holding a steaming cup of coffee. The sunlight caught his hair, creating an almost halo effect that made him seem more inviting than he had during our brief encounters before. Something about his presence drew me closer, perhaps it was the ease with which he interacted with others or how effortlessly he seemed to fit into this lively atmosphere. I hesitated for a moment before deciding to approach him. We exchanged pleasantries about the festival and our mutual love for this town's charm. His laughter was warm, genuine, a stark contrast to my home life. As we chatted about favorite local spots and upcoming events, I felt an unexpected flutter of excitement stir within me. "Have you tried the blueberry pie?" he asked suddenly, his eyes glinting mischievously. I shook my head, feeling somewhat foolish for not even considering it amidst my internal struggles. "No, I haven't." "Let's go get a slice then," he suggested, motioning toward a nearby stall adorned with colorful bunting. Before I could second-guess myself or retreat back to my comfort zone of solitude, I found myself following him through the crowd. The sweet scent of baked goods enveloped us as we approached the stall where slices of pie glistened under glass displays. We sat on a bench nearby, sharing stories and laughter over our slices of pie, the tartness perfectly balanced by its flaky crust. For those fleeting moments, life felt vibrant again, as if colors had returned to my world after years of grayness. As we talked about everything and nothing at all, his recent move to town and my favorite hiking trails, I noticed how easily our knees brushed against each other on the bench. Each accidental touch sent ripples of warmth through me. It was a sensation long forgotten but now igniting something deep within. The sun began its descent behind the hills surrounding us, casting golden hues across the sky while shadows lengthened around us. The laughter from nearby festivities faded into background noise as our conversation deepened into more personal territory, discussions about dreams unfulfilled and hopes quietly abandoned. Then came that moment, an unplanned pause where we simply looked at one another under that fading light. It was as if time stood still, everything else melted away until only we remained suspended in that space between friendship and something more profound. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face before he leaned slightly closer, a gesture so subtle yet charged with unspoken possibilities that it left me breathless. Just then, laughter erupted from behind us as children chased one another through the square, snapping me back to reality. I quickly withdrew from that lingering moment but felt an undeniable shift within myself. Questions whirled chaotically in my mind like leaves caught in an autumn breeze. Was this connection real? Did I dare explore it further? As dusk settled over the town square bathed in twinkling lights strung overhead, I excused myself awkwardly after exchanging polite goodbyes, my heart racing as I walked away from him and back toward home. The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on my shoulders as I navigated familiar streets lined with houses that held memories both cherished and painful alike, the echoes of laughter replaced by silence upon entering my own front door. I paused briefly at threshold before stepping inside, a house filled with shadows where warmth once reigned supreme, and closed my eyes against rising emotions threatening to spill over at any moment. This newfound connection stirred something inside me that had long lain dormant, yet fear gripped tightly around my heart like ivy creeping up walls. Fear of what might come next if I dared venture down this path toward intimacy again after so many years spent adrift alone alongside someone who had become little more than a stranger sharing space with me. But what would be left unexamined if I chose not to pursue this fleeting glimpse of warmth? Would stepping outside those carefully constructed boundaries lead only to heartbreak or perhaps open doors previously sealed shut? With each passing day since meeting him, this neighbor who unknowingly ignited sparks within, I grappled between longing for connection against loyalty tethered by years spent together within these walls built upon silent expectations rather than shared desires or dreams yet fulfilled. As night fell over our small town cloaked in darkness punctuated only by distant stars above, the weighty silence echoed louder than ever before. I couldn't shake off thoughts swirling around possibilities now laid bare before me like open pages waiting patiently for ink to fill them anew. The air was thick with unspoken words, a tension that wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. I stood in my kitchen, the familiar sense of simmering spices and baking bread filling the space, yet they felt foreign against the backdrop of my racing thoughts. The neighbor had stirred something within me, a flicker of warmth in a home where coldness had settled like dust. As I chopped vegetables for dinner, my mind wandered back to our last encounter. The way his laughter danced in the air, how his eyes sparkled with understanding, it was intoxicating. Yet guilt gnawed at me, whispering reminders of vows made long ago. My heart raced as I recalled the moment we kissed. It was unexpected yet felt so right in that fleeting second. I glanced out the window, half expecting to see him walking by. The sun was setting over the horizon, casting an orange glow that painted everything in a warm hue. In this moment of solitude, I yearned for connection beyond these four walls. I wanted someone to share my dreams and fears with, someone who would listen without judgment. The doorbell rang, breaking my reverie. I opened it to find him standing there, casual yet somehow magnetic. He held a small bouquet of wildflowers, an innocent gesture that sent butterflies fluttering in my stomach. "Thought you might like these," he said with a smile that lit up his face. "Thank you," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady as I took them from him. Our fingers brushed briefly, a spark ignited in that simple touch. "Do you have time for coffee?" he asked, his tone light but with an undercurrent of something deeper. I hesitated, glancing back into my home where familiarity felt both comforting and suffocating. "Sure," I finally said, stepping outside and closing the door behind me. We walked to the local cafe together, exchanging small talk about mundane things, the weather and upcoming town events, but beneath it all lay an electric current that pulled us closer with each step. The cafe was warm and inviting, its soft lighting provided a refuge from the world outside. Over steaming mugs filled with rich coffee, we spoke more freely than before. He shared stories about his life, his struggles and aspirations, and suddenly I didn't feel so alone anymore. Each revelation brought us closer. It felt as if we were peeling back layers that had long been buried under routine. "I've often wondered if there's more to life than what we settle for," he mused quietly after a pause. His words resonated deeply within me, like an echo of my own hidden desires. "Sometimes it feels like we're just going through the motions," I admitted softly. He leaned closer across the table, his gaze intense yet tender. "You deserve more than this," he said earnestly. In that moment of vulnerability shared between us, an unspoken agreement formed, a pact sealed not by words but by understanding. As if sensing the shift in our dynamic, he reached out and gently placed his hand atop mine on the table. The warmth radiating from his touch sent shivers coursing through me. It was both exhilarating and terrifying at once. "We kissed," he murmured softly as if recalling our last meeting, a memory now etched into my mind forevermore. Reality crashed back down around us as laughter erupted from another table nearby, a stark reminder of our surroundings and the lives we led outside this bubble we'd created together. "I shouldn't be here," I whispered suddenly, pulling my hand away as guilt washed over me like cold water. He looked taken aback but quickly masked it with understanding. "You're not alone in this," he reassured me gently. Yet even as he spoke, those words meant to comfort me. Uncertainty loomed large over our connection. What would happen if anyone saw us? What would they think? I pushed aside those thoughts for now. All that mattered was this moment, the warmth radiating between us amidst an otherwise chilly existence. After coffee ended too soon, we walked back toward our homes slowly, each step weighted down by unsaid things lingering heavily in the air around us like fog refusing to lift completely away from view. As night descended upon our small town, once more cloaked in darkness punctuated only by streetlights illuminating paths ahead, I could feel eyes upon us from afar. Perhaps neighbors peering through curtains or glancing out windows wondering what two people were doing so close together at such an hour. "We should probably head inside," I suggested reluctantly when we reached my doorstep again, my heart torn between wanting him near and knowing how risky this all felt now under watchful gazes surrounding us each day after day. "Yeah, maybe another time?" He looked uncertain but hopeful all at once, the tension palpable still hanging heavily between us even as distance grew wider again, separating our two worlds once more into their respective corners defined by obligations left unfulfilled lingering behind closed doors waiting patiently for change yet unseen just beyond reach still. As he turned away toward his own home down the street illuminated only by faint moonlight filtering through trees lining either side, I stood there watching until shadows swallowed him whole, leaving nothing but echoes remaining behind, reminding me how fragile happiness could be when built upon fleeting moments shared secretively away from prying eyes lurking nearby, always ready, waiting quietly just outside sight's edge, ready to pounce should anything go amiss. I stepped inside feeling both exhilarated yet terrified simultaneously. What had begun innocently enough now threatened everything known before. A delicate balance teetering on edge, poised precariously above chasms filled with unknown consequences, waiting silently beneath surface tensions rising ever higher. As I closed the door behind me, the quiet of my home enveloped me like a heavy blanket. The familiar sounds of creaking floorboards and the ticking clock in the hallway felt more pronounced in the absence of his presence. I leaned against the door, heart racing, recalling how our lips met under the soft glow of streetlights just moments before. The thrill of that kiss lingered, a sweet distraction from the reality I faced daily. I moved through the dimly lit rooms, each one echoing with memories that felt increasingly distant. My husband sat in his usual spot on the couch, engrossed in a television show that held no interest for me. The flickering screen cast shadows on his face, highlighting lines etched by years of indifference, years that had become my own prison. "Hey," I said softly, trying to sound casual as I slipped into my seat across from him. He glanced up briefly before returning to whatever plotline demanded his attention. A part of me longed for him to notice my absence, to ask where I had been, to show some hint of concern or curiosity. But that part was drowned out by resignation. He wouldn't. The evening dragged on as we exchanged few words, a comfortable silence settling between us, a silence that had become too familiar over time. I could feel my heart tugging towards thoughts of him, the neighbor who had unwittingly become my escape from this emotional void. Each memory of our stolen moments made it harder to ignore the growing divide between what was and what could be. The next day unfolded like any other until an unexpected encounter at the local cafe sent ripples through my carefully constructed facade. As I entered, the aroma of coffee wrapped around me like a warm embrace. I spotted him seated at a corner table, engrossed in a book but glancing up just as I walked in. Our eyes met briefly, an electric connection that sent warmth coursing through me despite my best efforts to remain composed. I ordered my usual drink and took a seat across from him, aware of how much this small act felt like an indulgence in something forbidden yet intoxicating. "You're here early," he remarked lightly, closing his book. "I needed a break from everything," I replied cautiously, hoping he understood more than just my words. "Everything can be overwhelming sometimes," he said with an understanding smile that made my heart flutter unexpectedly. We spoke quietly about mundane things, the weather, our favorite books, but beneath those surface-level conversations lay an undercurrent of something deeper brewing between us. With every shared laugh and subtle brush of hands across the table, I felt myself leaning closer into this fragile connection. Then it happened again. An innocent touch turned into something more as our fingers lingered together for just a heartbeat longer than necessary. My breath caught in my throat as warmth spread through me. It was exhilarating yet terrifying all at once. What if someone sees us? The thought slipped out before I could stop myself. He looked around cautiously but then met my gaze with intensity. "Let them see," he said softly but firmly. "I don't want to hide anymore." His words hung in the air between us like an unspoken promise, one filled with both hope and danger. Just then, a figure caught my eye, a neighbor who lived 2 doors down, walking past the cafe window with their dog. My heart raced as panic surged through me. What if they saw? What if they told? "Maybe we should be more careful," I suggested hesitantly. He nodded slowly but didn't pull back his hand from mine. Instead, he squeezed it gently, a silent reassurance amidst swirling doubts threatening to consume me whole. Later that evening, after returning home and slipping into bed beside him without exchanging any words or glances, my mind buzzed incessantly with thoughts about what had transpired earlier that day. Our secret felt heavier now, as if it were alive and breathing right alongside me, its weight pressing down on all sides while simultaneously igniting something within me long thought extinguished. What would happen if we were discovered? Would everything fall apart? Would my life return to its previous state filled only with hollow echoes? Days turned into weeks filled with stolen moments and whispered conversations beneath starlit skies while navigating this new terrain fraught with uncertainty, a delicate dance balancing on edges sharp enough to cut deep should either slip or falter along their path forward. But every moment spent together seemed worth risking everything known before, even if it meant treading dangerously close to oblivion lurking just around each corner waiting patiently for missteps. One afternoon at the scenic viewpoint overlooking the river, a place where we often found solace amidst nature's beauty, I caught sight of someone watching us from afar, a familiar figure whose presence sent shivers down my spine, another neighbor who often frequented this area for walks with their family. I felt exposed under their gaze as laughter burst forth from us both over some shared joke, suddenly feeling less carefree than moments prior, the weighty realization creeping back into focus. We weren't alone anymore. "Do you think they saw us?" My voice trembled slightly despite trying desperately not to give way to fear overtaking reason entirely. He glanced towards where I pointed but shrugged nonchalantly, the confidence radiating off him igniting something inside me despite lingering doubts clawing at corners of consciousness, still unsure whether pursuing this path led toward liberation or destruction. "I can't worry about what others think," he insisted firmly while turning back toward me, his eyes locking onto mine intensely enough that everything else faded away momentarily until nothing existed beyond those depths swirling around us, both drawing closer together once again. And so we leaned in again, a gentle brush against one another's lips igniting sparks, once more igniting flames previously hidden beneath layers carefully constructed over years spent living within confines built by expectations placed upon ourselves by society surrounding us both. But as our moment deepened, a sudden rustle nearby shattered our bubble, pulling reality crashing back down around us like waves crashing against rocks, eroding away foundations built upon sand instead solid ground. Before either could react fully, the figure standing off in distance cleared their throat loudly, catching both our attention, immediately breaking spell woven tightly between two souls yearning desperately for connection amidst chaos surrounding them, always lurking nearby ready pounce should anything go amiss. The moment shattered by the figure in the distance lingered in my mind. As I turned, I saw a familiar neighbor, a woman from down the street, watching us with an expression that seemed to blend curiosity and concern. My heart raced. The delicate balance I had found felt precarious now. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, though it carried the weight of my anxiety. "Just taking a walk," she replied casually, but her eyes darted between us. "Didn't mean to interrupt." The neighbor beside me shifted slightly, his posture tightening. The warmth that had enveloped us moments before evaporated into the cool evening air, leaving me feeling exposed and vulnerable. "We were just talking," I managed to say, trying to sound nonchalant. But even as I spoke, I could feel the fabric of my secret fraying at the edges. "Talking," she repeated with a knowing smile that made my stomach twist. "Well, don't let me keep you." With that, she turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing in the silence left behind. I glanced at my companion beside me. His expression mirrored my own unease. "That wasn't ideal," he said quietly. "No," I agreed, feeling a wave of guilt wash over me. "What if she tells someone?" "Let's not think about that now." He reached for my hand instinctively, intertwining our fingers as if to anchor both of us amidst the uncertainty swirling around us. We stood there for a moment longer before he suggested we go back inside his house. The thought sent shivers down my spine, both from excitement and fear. What had begun as a refuge was becoming increasingly complicated with each passing day. Inside his home, the atmosphere shifted again. It felt intimate yet charged with tension. We settled onto the couch, our hands still linked on the armrest between us. The room was dimly lit, shadows danced on the walls as soft light filtered through sheer curtains. "I've been thinking about what happened last night," he said slowly after a pause that stretched like an elastic band ready to snap. "We spent the night together," I whispered almost involuntarily, recalling how comforting it had been to share that space without pretense or expectation. "Yes." He looked down at our hands before meeting my gaze again. "I enjoyed it more than I expected." "Me too." A part of me wanted to bask in this moment of connection while another part warned of impending consequences looming like dark clouds on the horizon. "Do you think we can keep doing this?" he asked cautiously as if testing waters that might be deeper than they appeared. I hesitated. Uncertainty flooded my thoughts like an unwelcome tide threatening to sweep away everything I had begun to cherish. "I don't know how long we can hide this." His brow furrowed slightly in contemplation. "What if we didn't have to hide? What if we just lived?" The idea sent chills through me, both exhilarating and terrifying. Living openly would mean confronting everything, my marriage and all its failings, his own situation too uncertain for comfort. "I'm not sure either of us is ready for that." My voice trembled slightly as I spoke. Honesty felt like stepping onto thin ice. He nodded slowly but didn't press further. Instead, we fell into silence again, an unspoken understanding hanging between us like fog over water. As minutes passed in quiet contemplation punctuated only by distant sounds from outside, the chirping of crickets and rustling leaves, I began to feel restless within this cocoon we'd created together. "What do you want?" he suddenly asked out of nowhere, breaking through my thoughts with unexpected clarity. The question caught me off guard. It was simple yet profound and demanded introspection beyond what I was prepared for at that moment. "I want," the words formed but faltered on my lips. What did I truly want? Comfort? Connection? Freedom from loneliness? "I want warmth," I finally admitted softly after what felt like an eternity weighing options against consequences in my mind's balance sheet. He squeezed my hand gently but firmly, a promise unspoken yet understood between two souls navigating unfamiliar territory together despite their fears looming large overhead like storm clouds threatening rain. "Then let's find it together," he said with conviction shining through his eyes, a spark igniting hope within me amidst uncertainty swirling around us like autumn leaves caught in gusty winds spiraling toward unknown destinations ahead. But just then, the doorbell rang sharply, cutting through our moment, a sudden jolt back into reality where secrets lay waiting patiently beneath layers built upon fragile foundations threatening collapse should anyone dare disturb them. What now? His expression shifted from warmth into concern as he stood up, abruptly moving towards entrance hall while releasing grip on my hand, reluctantly leaving behind warmth lingering between fingertips now cold against air surrounding us, thickening with tension, rising steadily upward. I don't know, my heart raced again. Who could be visiting at this hour? Anxiety clawed its way into every crevice of thought until it consumed all rationality, leaving only dread behind. He opened the door cautiously, revealing another neighbor standing there, a man whose presence sent alarm bells ringing loudly throughout every fiber within me, instantly recognizing him as someone who knew far too much about everyone living nearby, including secrets held tightly within homes surrounding ours, built upon trust, sometimes fragile, easily shaken when exposed under scrutiny. Hey! Just checking in on you guys. His cheerful tone belied any sense of urgency lurking beneath surface, masking intentions hidden behind friendly facade masking what lay beneath. Everything all right? The neighbor continued, smiling broadly, seemingly unaware or perhaps willfully ignorant regarding atmosphere thickening around them, both pressing down heavily upon shoulders-laden burden, secrets shared only among those who dared venture beyond boundaries set long ago. My companion exchanged glances with me filled with uncertainty before responding cautiously, "Yeah, all good here." But even as he spoke those words meant to reassure, I could feel tension rising again, pushing against walls closing in around us, suffocating any remnants hope clinging desperately onto fragile threads woven tightly together until they began fraying, slowly unraveling under pressure mounting steadily ever since day began anew, bringing challenges unforeseen lurking just outside sight, waiting patiently ready pounce should opportunity arise unexpectedly, catching everyone off guard, leaving nothing but chaos behind. The weight of my double life pressed heavily upon me as I navigated the familiar streets of our small town. Each step felt like a balancing act, a tightrope walk between the warmth I found in my neighbor's company and the cold reality of my home life. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that seemed to mirror my own internal struggle. I returned home, where silence enveloped me like a thick fog. My husband sat in his usual spot, absorbed in a book. The air was thick with unspoken words and unresolved tension. I could sense his suspicion lingering just beneath the surface, an unacknowledged awareness that something had shifted within me. I forced a smile as I entered, but it felt like a mask slipping over my true emotions. "Everything okay?" he asked without looking up, his tone casual yet probing. "Yeah," I replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "Just busy with work." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but it was easier than revealing the truth. As evening settled in, I found myself lost in thought while preparing dinner. Memories of stolen glances and shared laughter with my neighbor flickered through my mind like fireflies on a warm summer night. Those moments were intoxicating yet laced with danger. What would happen if anyone discovered our connection? The thrill of it danced dangerously close to recklessness. Later that night, after dinner had been cleared away and the kitchen quieted down, I received a message from him. The screen lit up with his name, a small spark of excitement amid the mundane routine of my life. "Can we talk?" it read. The request sent my heart racing. We often met at the scenic viewpoint overlooking the river when darkness cloaked our town in anonymity. It was our sanctuary away from prying eyes and judgmental whispers. I stepped out into the cool night air, each breath sharp against my skin as I made my way to our meeting place. The stars twinkled overhead like distant promises, but anxiety gnawed at me as I approached the familiar spot. He was already there, leaning against his car with arms crossed and an expression that revealed he was deep in thought. "Hey," I greeted softly, trying to gauge his mood. "Hey," he replied, his voice low and serious. We need to talk. My heart sank at his tone. It carried an urgency that made me uneasy. What's wrong? He shifted uncomfortably before meeting my gaze directly. I've been thinking about us. His words hung heavy in the air between us. What about us? I asked cautiously. I'm scared, he admitted finally, running a hand through his hair in frustration. Scared that we're playing with fire here. His confession resonated deeply within me. Doubt had been creeping into my thoughts too. I know what you mean, I said quietly, feeling vulnerable under his scrutiny. I can't help but feel like someone is watching us, he continued, glancing around as if expecting an audience to appear from the shadows. A chill ran down my spine at the suggestion that our secret might not be so secure after all. What do you mean? I saw someone earlier today, our mutual friend, hanging around when we were together last week, he explained hesitantly. Panic surged through me at the thought of being exposed so carelessly. You think they know? I don't know, he admitted grimly, but it's making me rethink everything. The reality of our situation crashed over me like icy water. This wasn't just about fleeting moments anymore, it was becoming something more complicated than either of us had anticipated. I don't want to hide anymore, I said suddenly, surprising myself with my own boldness. But is this worth risking everything we have? He stared into space for a moment before responding thoughtfully, that's what scares me most. We stood there in silence for what felt like an eternity, uncertainty wrapped around us tightly as we considered our choices together, choices that could redefine everything we knew about ourselves and each other. Then suddenly breaking that tension came laughter from somewhere nearby, a group of young people enjoying their carefree lives oblivious to our turmoil, and it jolted us back into reality. We should go, he suggested reluctantly before stepping back toward his car. Yeah, my voice trailed off as disappointment washed over me. There was so much left unsaid between us. As he drove away into the darkness, leaving only echoes behind him, fading slowly away into nothingness, I felt hollow inside, wondering if this was truly how things would end for us. Never fully realized, never fully explored, always lingering just beyond reach. Returning home felt different now. Every creak of floorboards echoed louder than before, reminding me how fragile everything had become. I needed clarity more than ever before facing another day filled with uncertainty looming ahead, waiting patiently, ready pounce should opportunity arise, unexpectedly catching everyone off guard, leaving nothing but chaos behind. Sleep eluded me that night. Thoughts swirled relentlessly through my mind like leaves caught up in autumn winds, refusing settle down until dawn broke, softly illuminating shadows cast across walls, filled memories, both haunting, beautiful, intertwining together, forming tapestry woven tightly together, until they began fraying, slowly unraveling under pressure, mounting steadily ever since day began anew, bringing challenges unforeseen lurking just outside sight, waiting patiently, ready pounce should opportunity arise, unexpectedly catching everyone off guard, leaving nothing but chaos behind. Morning light filtered through curtains, casting gentle rays across bed where dreams once held promise now turned nightmares, haunting every corner, reminding how precariously balanced everything truly was. My heart raced again, thinking about what lay ahead when confronting husband later today, needing answers, desperately seeking resolution without exposing hidden truths buried deep within soul, yearning freedom from chains binding tightly together, holding captive, keeping safe secret, harboring fears, doubts, fears lingering still. The day passed slowly, filled mundane tasks, chores, errands, punctuated by glances exchanged between husband who seemed increasingly aware something shifted beneath surface, threatening stability built over years spent together, navigating life's complexities side by side, yet feeling further apart than ever before. Finally evening arrived, bringing opportunity, confront him head-on, demand clarity, searching for understanding amidst confusion swirling around, relentlessly refusing settle down until answers revealed themselves, finally uncovering hidden truths buried deep within soul, yearning freedom from chains binding tightly together, holding captive, keeping safe secret, harboring fears, doubts, fears lingering still. As we settled into familiar routine once again, The air thickened around us, charged electricity crackling just beneath surface, threatening erupt any moment, revealing truths long kept hidden, waiting patiently, ready pounce should opportunity arise, unexpectedly catching everyone off guard, leaving nothing but chaos behind. The evening air hung heavy with unspoken words as I prepared to face the neighbor. My heart raced, each beat echoing the uncertainty that had taken root within me. The weight of secrecy pressed down, making it hard to breathe. I needed clarity, a resolution to this emotional turmoil that had become my constant companion. As I walked toward the cafe, familiar sights greeted me: children laughing, couples enjoying ice cream, and the warm glow of lights strung across the town square. Yet, none of it felt inviting. My mind was elsewhere, tangled in thoughts of what lay ahead. I entered the cafe and spotted the neighbor seated at our usual table, his expression a mixture of anticipation and concern. "Hey," he said softly as I approached. His eyes searched mine for answers that eluded us both. "Hi," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "We need to talk." He nodded, gesturing for me to sit. The ambience around us buzzed with life, coffee machines whirred and patrons chatted animatedly, but our world felt isolated from it all. The moment hung in the air like a fragile bubble ready to burst. "I've been thinking about us," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. "About everything." He leaned forward, his brow furrowing slightly. "Me too. I can't shake off this feeling that we're playing with fire." A chill ran down my spine at his words. Playing with fire indeed. Every moment we spent together felt like dancing on a tightrope stretched over an abyss of consequences. "I don't want to hide anymore," I confessed. His gaze dropped to the table, fingers tracing patterns on the wood as if searching for answers hidden in its grain. "But what does that mean for us? For your marriage?" The mention of my husband sent a wave of guilt crashing over me. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling small and vulnerable under his scrutiny. "I just know that being with you feels different." He looked up then, his eyes reflecting a mix of hope and trepidation. "Different how?" "Warm," I said simply, feeling the weight of honesty settle between us like an anchor in turbulent waters. As we spoke more about our feelings and fears, time slipped away unnoticed until laughter from a nearby table jolted me back to reality. A pang of anxiety struck when I noticed someone enter, the mutual friend who had been watching us closely lately. My heart raced as she scanned the room before settling her gaze on us. The tension in my chest tightened further as she approached our table with an air of casualness that felt anything but natural. "Fancy seeing you two here," she exclaimed cheerfully, though her eyes betrayed her curiosity. "Just catching up," I replied quickly, hoping to deflect any probing questions. "Oh? Seems like there's more than just coffee brewing between you." Her smile was teasing yet sharp enough to cut through our facade. The neighbor shifted uncomfortably in his seat while I forced a laugh that sounded hollow even to my own ears. "Just friends sharing stories," he said lightly. She raised an eyebrow but didn't push further. Instead, she took a seat across from us without invitation. "You know how small towns are, everyone knows everyone's business." Her presence loomed over our conversation like a storm cloud threatening rain at any moment. Each word exchanged felt like walking on eggshells as we navigated this unexpected interruption. "What's new with you?" I asked, desperate for distraction from where this conversation might lead. "Oh, just the usual, work's busy and planning for summer activities." She waved her hand dismissively but continued eyeing us both suspiciously before finally leaning back in her chair. As minutes passed filled with forced pleasantries and small talk about local events, my mind raced ahead of the present moment. What would happen if she connected the dots? My heart sank at the thought. Everything we shared could unravel in an instant if word got out. Eventually, she excused herself under the pretense of needing to catch up with someone else across the cafe, but not before leaving behind an air thick with implications that lingered long after she left. I can't keep doing this, he said suddenly once she was out of earshot. What do you mean? My pulse quickened again at his words. They hung heavy in the air between us like an ultimatum waiting to be fulfilled. This, all of it. He gestured vaguely around us as if encompassing our entire situation, the secrecy, the whispers lurking just beyond earshot, and it sent shivers down my spine because deep down inside me echoed similar sentiments begging for release. I don't want anyone else getting hurt, he continued quietly but firmly now. Resolve etched into every line on his face, illuminated by soft cafe lighting casting shadows across our table where dreams mingled dangerously close with reality threatening collapse at any moment should one misstep occur. We can figure this out, I insisted desperately, fear clawed at my insides twisting into knots tightening around hope trying desperately not to slip away completely while glancing toward where our friend had sat moments before wishing she hadn't interrupted. But he shook his head slowly, regret mingling within those depths revealing truths neither wanted yet both understood too well already. I can't be seen as untrustworthy, not by anyone here. His voice broke slightly, vulnerability seeped through cracks forming walls built around emotions long buried beneath layers upon layers shielding against pain endured alone. A silence enveloped us thickening gradually until it became unbearable pressing down harder than ever before suffocating dreams once vibrant now fading quickly into shadows cast by uncertainty looming large overhead threatening everything we'd built together thus far. What do we do? The question slipped from my lips unbidden filled with desperation seeking answers found nowhere amidst chaos swirling around relentlessly refusing settle down until clarity emerged finally unveiling hidden truths buried deep within souls yearning freedom from chains binding tightly together holding captive keeping safe secret harboring fears doubts fears lingering still. His expression softened momentarily meeting mine across distance created by circumstances beyond control yet somehow still tethered together despite odds stacked high against us both longing desperately grasp onto something tangible real amidst swirling uncertainties surrounding everything else crashing down all around. Then came realization crashing through walls built so carefully brick by brick crumbling beneath weight bearing down upon shoulders no longer able withstand pressure mounting higher pushing closer toward breaking point inevitable looming large ahead casting shadows darker than night itself threatening swallow whole light flickering dimly fading fast leaving nothing but emptiness behind. The weight of my dual existence pressed down harder with each passing day. I sat in the cafe, swirling the coffee in my cup, watching the steam rise and dissipate into the air. The warmth of the drink contrasted sharply with the chill that enveloped my heart. I was trapped between two worlds, one filled with a sense of obligation and another that flickered with possibility. But that possibility felt increasingly precarious. As I took a sip, the door swung open, and he entered. My heart raced at the sight of him, yet a knot tightened in my stomach. He approached slowly, scanning the room before settling his gaze on me. The smile he offered was warm but tinged with uncertainty. I gestured for him to sit, acutely aware of the eyes around us. "Do you think anyone noticed?" he asked quietly after settling into the chair opposite me. I shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant while my mind raced through all the moments we had shared in secret. "I don't know," I replied softly. "But it's getting harder to hide." His brow furrowed as he leaned closer, lowering his voice further. "I don't want to be seen as untrustworthy," he confessed, glancing around again as if someone might be eavesdropping. The concern etched on his face mirrored my own fears. Our connection had grown deeper than either of us anticipated, yet it came with risks that felt more tangible than ever before. I wanted to reach out and reassure him, but a sudden wave of anxiety washed over me. What if someone did see us together? What would happen then? "I just need to figure things out," I said carefully, choosing my words as if they were fragile glass. "We can't keep living like this." He nodded slowly, understanding but clearly troubled by our situation. "There's something I haven't told you," he said hesitantly. My heart skipped a beat at his words. Secrets had become an unwelcome part of our lives, they threatened to unravel everything we'd built together in stolen moments. "What is it?" I urged gently. He hesitated again before speaking, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've been dealing with things you don't know about, things that make this even more complicated." "What do you mean?" My curiosity piqued despite the unease curling in my stomach. "I'm not just some neighbor looking for companionship," he admitted, eyes darting away from mine as if ashamed to reveal too much. "I've been going through a lot, my own struggles that have kept me from being fully honest." "Like what?" The question slipped out before I could rein it in. He took a deep breath and leaned back slightly as if bracing himself for impact. "I've been trying to sort out my own life. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep doing this without facing reality." Reality loomed large between us, an insurmountable wall made up of obligations and expectations that neither of us could ignore forever. The thought sent shivers down my spine. What would happen if we were exposed? Would either of us have the strength to face our respective truths? Before I could respond, a voice interrupted our conversation, a familiar one that sent dread pooling in my stomach. "Fancy seeing you both here." A mutual acquaintance stood nearby, arms crossed casually but eyes sharp with curiosity. I froze momentarily while panic surged through me like ice water flooding my veins. How long had she been there? Had she overheard anything? My mind raced through every interaction we'd shared recently, every fleeting touch or shared glance, and wondered how many had gone unnoticed until now. "Just catching up over coffee," he said smoothly, attempting to deflect her attention away from any underlying tension. She raised an eyebrow but smiled brightly enough to mask any suspicion lingering beneath her surface cheerfulness. "You two always seem so cozy together. Must be nice having someone who understands." The words hung heavy between us like an unspoken truth threatening exposure at any moment. "Yeah," I managed to reply weakly while forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace than anything genuine. After exchanging pleasantries that felt painfully superficial under scrutiny from our friend's watchful gaze, she finally moved on, her departure leaving behind an oppressive silence filled only by unasked questions echoing louder than ever before in our minds. "I can't keep doing this," he murmured once she was out of earshot, the urgency palpable in his tone now tinged with desperation. "I know." My heart sank further into despair. Every word spoken felt like another nail driven into our fragile arrangement, the walls closing in around us both threatening collapse under their own weight. With each passing moment spent together feeling increasingly precarious alongside burgeoning doubts about whether this connection could withstand outside pressures bearing down upon us both. Then came a slip, a careless word escaping his lips without thought or intention behind it. "What would your husband say if he knew?" The room seemed to tilt slightly as dread washed over me anew, memories flooded back vividly, the coldness between us at home juxtaposed against warmth found here amidst stolen moments shared only when no one else was watching closely enough. "What did you just say?" My voice trembled despite efforts made toward steadiness while fear clawed at edges of reason threatening total collapse within seconds flat, all clarity lost amidst swirling chaos unraveling rapidly around me. He paled visibly at realization dawning across his features, eyes widening as comprehension settled heavily upon shoulders already burdened by too much weight carried far too long without respite sought anywhere near sight. "I didn't mean," his voice trailed off into silence, words failed him entirely now as consequences loomed large ahead casting shadows darker than night itself threatening swallow whole light flickering dimly fading fast leaving nothing but emptiness behind. In that moment suspended between breaths taken and breaths withheld, I understood fully what lay ahead. Choices made would ripple outward affecting everything within reach, including lives intertwined far beyond mere moments shared together fleetingly amid chaos surrounding us both. But perhaps those choices already set forth couldn't be undone. not without facing truths hidden deep beneath layers built carefully brick by brick, crumbling beneath weight bearing down upon shoulders no longer able withstand pressure, mounting higher, pushing closer toward breaking point, inevitable looming large ahead, casting shadows darker than night itself, threatening swallow whole, light flickering dimly, fading fast, leaving nothing but emptiness behind. As I stood at the edge of the riverbank, the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting golden hues across the water. The serene beauty of the moment felt like a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within me. I was caught between two lives, one tethered to a marriage that had long since lost its warmth, and another filled with fleeting moments of connection that threatened to unravel everything I knew. The neighbor's words echoed in my mind, his desire for commitment pressing against my chest like a weight I couldn't shake off. He had opened up about his own fears, revealing layers of vulnerability that resonated deeply within me. I wanted to offer him reassurance, to tell him that this connection meant something profound. But with every heartbeat, I felt the invisible strings tying me to my husband tighten, reminding me of the life I had built, one that now felt like a cage. "Do you think we can find a way?" he had asked, his voice low and earnest, as we stood in the cafe last week. The warmth of his hand brushed against mine, igniting an electric spark that sent shivers down my spine. "I want to believe we can," I replied softly, unsure if my words were enough to bridge the gap between our desires and reality. Yet here I was now, alone with my thoughts as dusk settled around me. The river flowed steadily below, a reminder of time slipping away, time I could never reclaim. My heart raced as I considered what lay ahead, what would happen if I chose one path over another. Each choice seemed laden with consequences too heavy to bear. Then came an unexpected sound, a familiar voice drifting through the air. My husband was approaching from behind, his footsteps crunching on gravel as he neared where I stood lost in contemplation. Panic surged through me. What if he sensed something? What if he could see beyond my carefully constructed facade? "Hey," he called out casually, though there was an edge to his tone that hinted at something deeper lurking just beneath the surface. "Hi," I managed to say, forcing a smile onto my face as he joined me at the riverbank. The distance between us felt palpable. It was as if an invisible wall had risen since our last meaningful conversation. "What are you doing out here?" His question hung in the air like an accusation cloaked in curiosity. "I just needed some fresh air," I replied too quickly. "It's peaceful by the water." He nodded but didn't seem convinced. "You've been spending a lot of time outside lately." There was no mistaking the underlying tension in his voice now. I swallowed hard, searching for words that wouldn't betray me. "Sometimes it helps clear my mind." "Right." He turned his gaze toward the river, and for a moment, silence enveloped us both, a silence filled with unspoken truths and lingering doubts. As we stood side by side watching the water flow by, memories flooded back, moments when laughter filled our home and affection flowed freely between us like this very river before us. But those days felt distant now, replaced by an emotional chasm too vast to bridge without effort or change. "I've been thinking," he said suddenly, breaking through my reverie. "About us." A knot formed in my stomach as dread settled heavily within me. "What do you mean?" He hesitated before continuing, searching for words that seemed just out of reach. "I don't know how else to say this, but things can't stay like this forever." My heart raced. This wasn't what I wanted, not now when everything felt so precarious already. "What do you mean by like this?" "By distant," he said finally, frustration creeping into his tone. "You've changed, and not for the better." A sharp intake of breath caught in my throat, those words cut deeper than any knife ever could. It wasn't just about him noticing changes, it was about all those unspoken feelings bubbling beneath our surface like a simmering pot ready to overflow at any moment. "I'm still here," I insisted defensively despite knowing deep down how hollow those words sounded even to myself. "Are you?" His eyes bore into mine with an intensity that made it hard to breathe under their weight. Before I could respond further, an unexpected noise broke through our tense exchange. A shout from across the riverbank drew both our gazes away from each other momentarily. "Hey! You too!" A figure waved frantically from afar, someone who looked all too familiar yet out of place at this hour. My heart sank further as recognition hit me. It was someone from our neighborhood who had been observing more than they let on. The same friend who'd hinted earlier about keeping an eye on things between us both during casual conversations over coffee or at community events. "What do they want?" my husband asked sharply while narrowing his eyes suspiciously toward them, a flicker of annoyance evident on his face. "I don't know." My voice trailed off as anxiety gripped me tightly once again. Suddenly everything felt fragile, like glass poised on edge ready to shatter into pieces at any moment's notice under pressure mounting around us all too quickly now. The stranger approached closer and called out again, "I need to talk. It's important." My stomach twisted painfully while dread clawed its way up my throat. This wasn't good. Whatever they were here for would only complicate matters further. "What do they want?" my husband repeated impatiently, now glancing back toward me with concern etched across his features mixed with confusion layered thick over uncertainty hanging heavily between us both still. I opened my mouth readying myself for some kind of explanation, but nothing came forth other than silence echoing loudly around us both, amplifying tension rising higher still until it became unbearable, pressing down upon everything inside, threatening burst forth uncontrollably, spilling secrets long hidden away. And then it happened. The figure reached us finally, breathless yet determined, revealing truths neither one of us anticipated hearing nor wanting right then. "Listen carefully," they began urgently, cutting through air thickened with unresolved emotions swirling chaotically among all three present. An undeniable shift occurred within moments, forever altering trajectories set forth previously, leading toward uncertain futures ahead fraught with risks taken recklessly without consideration given. In that instant, standing there together, it became clear. Choices made would ripple outward, affecting everything within reach, including lives intertwined far beyond mere moments shared together fleetingly amid chaos surrounding us both.